So up next, we are joined by Faye Bennett and Peter Hansen to talk about Avix's newest certification and the AV-IT convergence. Thank you guys so much for joining. How are you enjoying ISC so far?
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, it's busy, isn't it? There's a lot of people here.
A lot of people.
Well, especially busy for you, Faye, because I've seen you on at least one panel already today.
Right.
You're over at our Avixa Exchange live stage. Fantastic panel there. I think Mina was actually on that panel as well.
So yes, I did tell her I wasn't following her around, but I think she's probably got that perception anyway.
Yeah, we're doubling up on everyone today. So, Faye, you and I were talking about your delight in the release of the ANP certification. Can we start off by talking a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we were at that event a couple of months ago, you kind of presented on it a little bit, and it just seemed to me like such a natural step, really. You know, we've been talking about the convergence of AV and IT for so long now. We've seen it with the technology, you know, AV over IP and AV devices being networked and that kind of gaining popularity. And actually it's just kind of natural that we now look at that a little bit in terms of the technical skills that we need and the support operations and structures that we need in place as well. So it just seems like a really great step that Avixa are really kind of moving in that direction with something that's formalized, you know, in way of certification. So yeah, a great move, I think. I think it's really needed.
Absolutely. And as the integration of AV and IT continues to deepen and new developments like ANP come out, Peter, what does the development of the ANP certification mean for the relationship between AV and IT, and how does it impact with comparative status between the two?
It's a good question. I see it kind of as a sign of the times. You know, it's a confirmation. It's telling you that we've reached a point in this AV-IT convergence that we need AV professionals to have IT skills. Not all of them, but like a significant portion. And the ANP didn't come because Avixa just decided it was going to do it. It came because a lot of our members were saying, we need to know who has this. We need to have AV people who have all those AV skills, but they need to have that deep competence in the IT backbone that is supporting all these AV technologies, and that's where the ANP certification came from. Because it's a challenge to implement these. There's a lot of skills that all piece together to create a beautiful, successful AV solution that's on the network, and that's what ANP is all about. It's about the network side of it. You know, there's still the AV side of it, and that's the core of most of the ANP holders' skill sets. But it's, you know, you can't have the final beautiful product without both parts these days for just a really significant portion of AV projects.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and actually to Peter's point, you know, I think it's about having that awareness of the networking and that more IT environment, but it's also about being able to talk to the end user customers in their own language, right? You know, we're working with big corporates at the moment who have IT service delivery managers, IT infrastructure managers, cybersecurity managers, and if we can't even talk in their language about risk, vulnerability, compliance, then we haven't really got a hope, you know? And I think what we're starting to see with end users is they're looking to our industry because we're the experts in AV, and now that they're networked, then it's just natural that they're saying, cool, well, what about the IT side? What about the risk? What about the, you know, vulnerability side? And we're in an interesting place at the moment, you know, where we're getting to grips with that.
Yeah, it's a very good way to frame it, I think, because it almost turns everyone into a business analyst. It's like you can then translate the message between departments. You don't need one specific person to do that. And I think to your point as well, it is about speaking the same language, which is why the ANP, I think, for example, is such a good idea, because it means that it's for the AV person and the IT person, and the translation is exactly right. I think in the past people probably would have maybe been a bit bamboozled by some of the language that their network administrator came out with, and it kind of caused them to back off. And then the next big thing doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's the same that we've kind of seen in the service and maintenance realm, really, with ITIL. You know, we've started to talk to IT managers in that language. So we're talking, you know, change management and incident management, problem management, and we're talking about SLAs in terms that they think in. You know, so we're starting to adjust some of that. But as we network more and more devices and more and more technologies, you know, we need to be confident, and we need end user business customers to be confident in us in an industry that we can manage network devices in a way that's fitting for their, you know, sensitive environments quite often.
Yeah, definitely.
And speaking of those end users, very often AV is within the IT department, and also very often it's just the IT department. It's not even like the AV subsection of the IT department. It's just the IT department's in charge, and you know that end user company doesn't really recognize AV as a separate subject. So they bring in the integrator perhaps, and that's how they get like the complicated AV projects done. But that common language and that legitimacy that you really need to establish is like, no, I get it. Like, I'm good at this.
Right.
You can trust me with your, you know, important conference room project or your important digital signage project or whatever it is that you're selling to your end user.
Yeah, definitely. And I know, Faye, as an industry, we've been talking about you know, the AV IT security. It's been spoken about for a while, but from a product level, right? So I think the next stage is actually maintaining that infrastructure. What are you seeing and hearing from your clients in that sort of arena?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting, right? Because we're getting, you know, technology networked, and then we need to be able to support those environments as well. So, you know, we're looking at service and support models that aren't just about break and fix anymore. Mm-hmm. We're talking about maintaining the security of their devices, you know, looking for vulnerabilities and managing that. So things like applying patches, applying firmware, you know, just being aware of what's going on with the technology and the network. Mm-hmm. And I think that's tying in so much into how the priorities of end users are changing as well. Mm-hmm. And I had a conversation the other day with a senior IT architect from a big global law firm, and they were saying that they would rather take one of their big boardrooms offline for a whole day, have it down completely, no uptime, than be on the front page of a newspaper because they've had a data breach.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's like, well, actually, yes, that makes sense. Yeah. You know, you can't have those kind of establishments having sensitivities like that. And so actually, but as an industry, we've kind of gone, right, uptime, uptime, uptime. We want uptime, we want availability. And now we're thinking along different tracks where we're going, actually, there's something bigger than this for our customers now, and it's about security, and we need to be on board and establish what we're doing as an industry to make sure that that's covered off and they're confident in us moving forward.
That's a really interesting insight. Yeah, you'd rather have a sort of IT outage than a security breach. Like any day of the week.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's just making us think a little bit differently about, you know, how we can meet those needs and those requirements. Supply and demand, right? You know, the customers we started working with are saying, well, our need is to have an AV partner who can manage the technology, manage the hardware, manage the software, but manage the networked environment that they're working on. And we need to step up, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And as the convergence is really shaping our industry, I think it's important for us to truly understand how we are dividing these responsibilities. So Peter, how do we manage these responsibilities, right? Effectively ensuring scalability, cost efficiency, while maintaining high quality standards?
Yeah, Sam, frankly, that's an excellent question because there's no silver bullet. It's not easy. I mean, you're taking AV. When we do a bunch of salary research, and what it tells us is AV is a high skill and as a result, high pay industry. And something that's true of IT is it's also very high skill and quite high pay as well. So if you want someone to do both AV and IT, like these two huge pools of skill, you're gonna have to pay a huge premium. One, that's a rare type of person. Two, like in order to give them the ROI on their investment to upskill for all the AV skills and all the IT skills, that's extremely expensive. So how do you create that professional at maybe the most efficient way? Well, that's what the ANP is about. It's like, okay, like focus in on like the core skills that like you as an AV professional need to do the network side of the AV skills. But that's not the only way. It's not just like, okay, get a professional who knows both. Like ANP, that's an answer to that, but it's not the only way. We did some research about this a couple years ago and found like, what are the best practices? And there's really kind of two other kind of main ways I mentioned. One is, you know, a company just has like AV and IT departments that work together. Easier said than done. Again, that's where that common language that, you know, Faye brought up, like, you know, an ANP can maybe help there, like, you know, work experience together. And then partnerships are actually a common one as well. There's a lot of AV companies out there who work with IT companies And even like, an end user IT team partnering with an AV team on the regular to get that done. And that's viable as well. More friction there, it's like case by case. And again, you need that common language. So I think there's really the case for like a few ANPs breadcrumbed into each system there, whether it's like 2 teams that need to figure out how to work together between their separate skill sets and mesh them, or it's 2 separate companies that need to mesh together, but it's a little harder, or it's just those like super high skilled professionals that like, okay, like how do you create that high skilled professional in as efficient a manner, and like you as a company, how do you not have to pay like the absolute maximum premium for like someone who's both great at IT and AV. Like that's where you kind of seek out like that efficient upskilling way to get someone who can really solve 2 separate problems to create one great outcome.
Good stuff.
And I think it's, looking a little bit down the line as well. We don't want to be on the back foot with this, and I think there's a little bit of risk that we are at the moment as solution providers and as service providers. But, I think we can forecast some of this, and this is obviously your world, in terms of market intelligence. When we went back to the big P, the pandemic, when people couldn't be in offices, we saw the rise of remote monitoring and management solutions. That service followed what was happening with the tech. Right now, AV and IT, AV over IP, has come out. So actually, it's only natural if we're putting devices on the network. We've then got to support those devices on the network. So how do we do that with our services? AV and broadcasting, that's going to bring out a whole new level of service that is needed to drive those environments. So, it's really just about looking that step forward and saying, as an industry, as solution and service providers, how do we prepare for this? Because what the tech is doing now, ISE,
Of course.
is going to implicate what's going to come out in terms of what's required managed service-wise. So I think we need to take a little look forward and then start, ANP, ITIL, all these other things that are out there, all the different accreditations, the ISO 27001 and all that good stuff. It's within our grasp. We've just got to look a little bit further and equip ourselves to remain relevant and to remain valuable to customers and what they need.
Absolutely.
Well, we look forward to looking ahead to that.
Yes, and we definitely challenge everyone to take a look at that ANP. So we really appreciate you guys providing your insights on this. So thank you so much for joining us here today.
Thanks for having us.
Wonderful.